how they could arrange their polling location with either 4 poll workers or 6 poll workers, because as you know, we have to maintain equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats. Essentially, the law says that no more than half of the poll workers can be a member of one of the 2 major political parties. And so for the counties that have said these diagrams don't meet our needs, we've said show us what you have, we'll work with you. And we have seen quite a few very, very ingenious, efficient polling place arrangements. And what this has done has been to require the boards of elections to think ahead to what it will be to handle these record numbers of voters and to be prepared for that. And we're confident, and through the traveling that I've done in the last few weeks to the various boards of elections, I'm confident that our boards are prepared. I'm getting good reports of smooth processes in the in-person absentee voting that's taking place, especially in the larger counties. With the poll worker training, we recognize also that while there is money available to provide to counties for poll worker training, that when the new voting machines under the Help America Vote Act were implemented, there was no statewide set of guidelines or standards for poll worker training. And many of the boards with very few resources were left on their own to develop poll worker training. So what we did was we created a manual for poll worker training, provided it to the boards of elections, gave it to them with a directive that said these are the minimum requirements that need to be contained in your own poll worker training. We're not going to force you to use exactly what we have, but you need to have these major points there. Because what we understood from 2004 as well is that when we have this disparate application of the law from county to county, it may at some point affect a voter's fundamental rights, substantive rights of due process and of their ability to vote. And we also understood from walking into the office in January of 2007 with 21 lawsuits pending against the Secretary of State that this type of disparate application of the law does engender litigation and unnecessary costs and attorney's fees for taxpayers, because if we lose those suits, generally a lot of them are 1983 actions where attorney's fees can be awarded and the state has to pay those fees. We wanted to go one step further on poll worker training, so we developed a quick reference guide that we printed 50,000 copies of. This is an example of what will be in use at the precinct polling location. So it doesn't give the poll worker everything from A to Z. It gives them the important things that they need to know on election day. So for instance, if they need to know what the provisional balloting requirements are, I know it looks complicated, but this is what's in the law. This is what they're required to know. It's all here for them. So whether they're in Stark County or whether they're in Greene County, they're going to be having the same information. And I've observed many of the boards of elections actually using these during their training, and the poll workers seem to find them pretty easy to use. Another example, voter identification. We came into the office in 2007, and there was simply about a 3-paragraph memorandum from the previous Secretary of State implementing voter identification. And there are things that poll workers and boards of elections officials need to know, such as what does current mean under the law. About less than a week before the 2006 election, there was a lawsuit filed. Judge Marbley issued a consent decree working with the parties for a last-minute directive on voter identification. But by the time this was issued, poll worker packets had already been distributed, and it was difficult to get this to poll workers for the 2006 election. So we thought it best to have it here up front as early as possible to be used in training and to be available at the polling location. So you should see these when you yourselves vote, if you vote on election day. Now, some people have complained that we've issued a lot of directives, but and in fact, I had one election official say that when he printed them out, that they were thicker than the revised code, but I did remind him that the revised code is double-sided, and ours were only one-sided here. We have issued a lot of directives, but it's been with the eye toward creating a reference library for the boards of elections to be able to look at a particular situation and get guidance on what to do so that we had consistency around the state. Part of my traveling around the state and meeting with boards of elections, since we issued our directives, the bulk of them in early September, was to learn from them if there were any issues, any problems with implementing them. And as a result of those discussions, we've made some minor changes and tweaks to better support the boards of elections in what they need to do. Since we came into office, we increased the number of attorneys available to boards of elections. Each county board has a specific attorney in our office assigned to them who is a reference person for interpretation of election laws. and the application of those laws, and they can email, telephone them, they can get a response in writing if they want it. And then we do have a bulletin board where frequently asked questions from boards are posted, where we post those answers, and they're shared among the boards of elections. We started on day one with 14 regional liaisons and 2 IT liaisons who have been there to assist the boards of elections in implementing the election laws and also some of the changes that we've seen in the laws. As you know, we did a top-to-bottom review of the voting systems throughout the state of Ohio, and while I would have liked to have moved the state a little bit further and a little bit faster toward all optical scan systems on paper ballots here in Ohio, that was not to be, and so we took what we learned from that voting machine study and working with a bipartisan team of election officials, developed best security practices for everything from at the Board of Elections, the transport of voting machines, ballots, memory cards, at the polling location, and minimum settings for the servers, which actually lay out the ballot and tabulate the votes on election night.